shocking difference between new and experienced motorcycle riders. There's a huge difference between new and experienced motorcycle riders. Now sometimes this is funny, but sometimes it's tragic. I've seen a lot happen over the last 40 plus years of riding. Now with beginners, there are obvious things that are missing. Things like skill issues when it comes to emergency braking, what type of mindset they have when they're riding their motorcycle, and of course there's the ability to make decisions under pressure. How do they react to surprises? But there's so much more. If you're a newbie, these talking points are going to help you fill the gaps and give you goals to work towards. And seasoned riders, add your experiences in the comments. And there's one thing that a lot of us experienced riders lack, but beginners have got, and I'll get to that later in the video. And now we've got to start with corners. That's number one. The most obvious thing is beginners are full of fear and tension around corners. Experienced riders love them. Corners are where a lot of fun in motorcycling comes from. Now new riders, they often slow down too much for a corner, or they brake too soon or too hard. They take the wrong line through the corner and they look down in front of their motorcycle instead of up and through the corner to where the exit is. And what's the difference? Experienced riders, they trust that counter steering works. They set up proper entry speed to the corner. They use trail braking through the corner. And of course they use their body position to maintain stability and control. Now what's interesting about corners, in particular for us Harley riders, the tyres have more lean than the bike. So yes, for sure, there are some technical details that you've got to have covered to take the corner safely or efficiently or as fast as possible. But generally speaking, the tyres are better than you are, or they're better than I am. And for sure on a Harley Davidson, you can't lean that much. The tyres are going to be better than the lean angle and your skill level. So you're probably going to get around the corner no problem at all. Now we just saw that accident. It looked like the guy didn't lean. Experienced riders know that where you look, you end up going. And perhaps that rider thought he was a little bit too hot into the corner, and he's fixated on the car coming in the other direction. And look what happened. And looking at the video, it appears that he could have leant over in that corner a lot more. And I always think it's better to have a low side crash, like leaning too far, than it is to have a head-on collision or a high side. On a low side crash, you're already pretty close to the ground. You're just going to do a lot of sliding. Now, don't forget, if you like my videos and you want to support the channel, check out the Old Not Dead merchandise. If you don't ride a Harley and you wear Old Not Dead gear, you will look as cool as if you were on a Harley. If you already have a Harley, blast off, show the world you're old, not dead. Way to go.
Representing.
T-shirts, round. We've got t-shirts in different colours, different logos, caps, beanies, stickers, patches, key rings, everything. Thanks very much, I really appreciate your support. And number two, gets a lot of people, rain. Experienced riders can and will ride in the rain, but there's a subtle difference between how they do this and what beginners do. Now there are two types of beginners when it comes to rain riding. The first type of beginner, very enthusiastic, he's going to instigate a ride in the rain, because often beginners just want to have another ride, they don't care what the weather is. They're so enthusiastic. I've only been on 4 rides. I need to get another one today, now. Now, do you think Harley Australia is going to be upset with me for getting their bike dirty? It's only got 400 odd kilometres on it. It looks pretty swish. But even though they're so enthusiastic and they want to get out there, they're nervous and they're tense when they're riding in the rain. And I guess if you've got to be smooth somewhere on the road, riding in the rain is the time to be gentle and smooth on your bike. Experienced riders, they know what a pain in the butt it is to ride in the rain. They know how dangerous it is. They do ride in the rain with confidence, but they're usually doing it to get the job done. And by that, I mean I've got to get to work, or I've got to get home from work, or we're on a trip, it's raining, big deal, we've got to get to our destination, so we'll ride in the rain. It's no big deal, they're experienced, it's just to get somewhere or to get back home. And that's a subtle difference that separates the newbies from the old hands. The second type of beginner just won't ride in the rain because it's too scary. But I always think the only way to overcome a fear is to jump in and do it. And perhaps beginners will eventually do that, ride in the rain, and I guess they're just waiting till they're a little bit more experienced on a bike full stop before they venture out into wet weather. Now, number 3, situational awareness. This is a big one. Experienced riders have got it, beginners don't. You see, new riders are often focusing on the basics like throttle control, how does the clutch work, am I in the right gear? How do you balance this thing? It's only got 2 wheels. And when you're doing something like this that's brand new to you, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. So you miss all of the external cues, like there's a pothole up ahead, or what's the traffic around you doing. We've often got tunnel vision, which is really just hyper-focusing due to the stress that learning something new is creating. When you're new at something like riding a motorcycle, the stress of that puts you into a hyper-stimulated mode, sort of like a fight or flight mode, and that does have an effect on your eyes and creates tunnel vision. That overwhelm when you're learning something new happens to everybody. It's not that big a deal. It's been so long since I've learnt to ride a motorcycle, I can't really remember exactly what it was like, but I do recall once somebody giving me a go in a real helicopter, to my surprise. Now, there are dual controls in a helicopter, so it's probably not as bad as I thought, but there are 4 controls that you need to coordinate and the sky's all blue. And I remember being completely overwhelmed with the controls, and the gentleman who was the actual pilot was saying, you know you're falling. I'm looking around at blue thinking, am I really? Yep, look at the altimeter. Too many things to look at, too many inputs to take note of when you're still learning the basics of the controls. What a disaster. So sympathy for the newbies that are still learning to ride, just keep your distance. Now, of course, seasoned riders who have mastered the basics of a motorcycle, they've got the ability to scan constantly and be predictive in what's happening around them. I mean, anticipate what cars are going to do, see that there are hazards up ahead like potholes or police.
What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
They're aware of people's blind spots. They can spot gaps or escape routes depending on how aggressive you are at riding. And of course, they're understanding all of these road conditions unconsciously. There's no effort involved at all. Beginners, you're going to get there eventually. Now, number 4, the actual bike. Most beginners don't know the bike that they really want. They think they do, and I know this is an arrogant comment, but they don't know because they don't have enough experience with different types of motorcycles to really know that. There's a huge difference between motorcycles in different categories. Think about a cruiser versus a sports bike, a sports tourer or an old school cafe racer, an adventure bike, a dirt bike, a trike, and inside each category you can drill down even further. Think about American cruiser versus Japanese, Harley versus Indian, Triumph versus whoever. And if we're sticking to Harleys, what type of Harley do you want? Do you want something relatively small and nimble? Or do you choose a big fat touring bike? And with Harley Davidsons, what about the different types of engines going back through the years? Do you choose a new M8 or do you go for a still readily available older Evolution engine? There's a difference between a standard Harley Davidson and a hotted up one, and the difference is huge. It's almost like they are completely different bikes. So much fun to be had as a beginner figuring out what sort of bike you want. Now, experienced riders usually know what they want, they've tasted a lot, and they end up choosing what they like and sticking to that. Personally, for a variety of reasons, I'm sticking to Harley Davidsons. There's an enormous amount of scope to experience different things if you just stick to that one particular brand. Just recently, I'm rediscovering how much fun the Evos are. If you're interested in that sort of thing, check out my videos about it on the channel. Now, number 5, style of riding and the appropriate conditions. You see, people often gravitate to a particular style of riding. With Harleys, you can see that some people gravitate to long distance or touring. Others like shiny looking show bikes. They do a lot of shorter trips, perhaps from one friend's house to another, from one cafe to another, or bar hopping, some people would call that. And then there are the younger riders, the stunt crowd. They're riding their Dyners, or now with the M8 engine, they're on low riders. Beginners don't know where they're going to feel at home. Maybe they've got to try everything. Country riding, city riding, they can feel completely different. I remember I switched from buying Harley Fat Boys across to street glides because I found myself riding on the open highway or country roads a lot. It's way easier having a screen to ride hard on a country road, and I had no intentions at all of touring. But if you're facing peak hour traffic and heading into the city all the time, a street glide is probably not the ideal bike. What about riding solo or in a group? Beginners are still discovering which is better for them. Some old timers think that riding in a group is too dangerous, and seasoned riders can ride all day. They understand when they're getting tired and they need a break. They understand when they are too fatigued to continue. They're going to call it a day, because being too tired on a motorcycle can be fatal. And I see a lot of beginners don't have the confidence to ride all day yet, and that's probably a good thing. And of course, your mood can influence your riding as well. Personally, I don't ride if I'm in a bad mood. Otherwise, I'd do something crazy under the influence of anger. That's a rookie mistake. Now, new riders just don't have the same risk perception as experienced riders do. They're more likely to underestimate risks due to overconfidence, like taking a corner too fast. And sometimes it's the opposite. They're overly nervous, they overbrake, they don't lean in corners, and they're tense on their motorcycle, which leads to all sorts of other problems. Seasoned riders are much more realistic in terms of what's dangerous. They know their limits, and the caution comes from experience, not fear. Now let me know in the comments what other differences you know there are between experienced riders and beginners. Now, beginners have a lot of enthusiasm, curiosity, and a lust for riding. That's something that a lot of experienced riders have lost. Now, in my opinion, we can all learn from the enthusiasm of a new rider. Perhaps we can use that enthusiasm as a catalyst for some type of change that makes our riding more fun, going to new places, seeing new things. What about changing the style of riding you do, or buying a new bike of a different type? They say change is as good as a holiday. That's a positive outlook. Now, if you like staying positive and you like today's video, check out this video where I explore the meaning of FTW. You're going to love it.